Hey guys, this is Faster U4 brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomaxa and Camping Cycles. If you're a cyclist and you want to go faster, then let's giddy up. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Faster U4 brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, and Biomaxa and Capital Cycles. Hey, bike racing yesterday. We had the kind of the first race in earnest of my little spring season, which was a criterium. Not normally my bag of fish, but it went quite well. I'll tell you all about that and show you some data and some comparison from some other criteriums I've done. It was an interesting one. Let's just say criterium tactics were not employed. But you can do quite well if you don't employ the standard tactics. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Tell you about my coaching tip of the week. A couple of shout-outs to some of my riders. I'll tell you what grinds my gears. And give you a little hurry up about some races that are coming up. Right, so let's look here. Yesterday, race 2, sort of the calendar of the Wellington Masters Cycling Club, but last week was a washout, literally because it poured down with so much rain they didn't hold the time trial. So this week they had a criterium here around the Army Barracks and the Trentham Army Camp, which was cool fun. I think, that's organised by, I think Rod T. Moana. The club is involved with the army, and he sets up the course, and it's actually a really cool course to ride on. If you haven't tried it before, and there's another crit held there, I would strongly recommend trying it because it's a lot of fun. It's a tailor-made almost criterium course. It's great. So that was yesterday. Let's have a look at some numbers. It was basically 35 minutes or 36 minutes or something, plus a couple of laps. You can see there 39.8 kilometers an hour average. Average power 313. EP 323. There's not much of a difference there, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Maximum power 919, not very high. Heart rate 157, cadence 92. Here's the data, and it's very, for a crit, consistent. Well, the reason for that was my little tactics on the day, which was to have a go. Actually, it was one of those funny things. So what happened was the criterium, if you think of a crit in normal terms as a series of anaerobic sprints out of a corner, hold the wheel, next corner, sprint, hold the wheel, next corner, sprint, hold the wheel. That's kind of how they mostly go. And 2 other crits I've done the last year or so here, North Island Team Series last year at Masterton, and here in a different course in Upper Hutt, were good examples of that type of racing. But this was different because I decided that because this is more of a training ride than anything for me, I wanted to try a different tactic, which was just to basically go from the gun and see what happened. Just ride and see if there was maybe going to be a period at the start of the race where people didn't jump on my wheel initially, speak to other people to work and catch me, and I could kind of ride it like a glorified time trial, which is pretty much the guts of what happened. And that's why the power, average power 313 is so close to the effective power 323, is because I was just away by myself for the entire race. And so that's interesting, and I think for me that's probably the best way to do it. There was some good strong riders. It wasn't a big field at all, but who could probably out-sprint me. But because I sort of did this tactic of going away by myself, I could play to my strengths, namely more consistent power, time trialing, and stay away, which was pretty cool. So if you want to see what that difference in stochastic power delivery looks like, well, the best way to look is the difference between your average power and your EP, your effective power. If you didn't know, EP, interchangeable with normalized power, NP, is a way of describing the metabolic cost of the ride you did. So anything where you've got lots of accelerations or hard accelerations and your power is going up and down quite rapidly, will give you a higher normalized power or effective power. So if you look here, there's only 10 watts difference between the actual power and the normalized power. Very steady power delivery. Here is a different race. It's only half as long. So the power was a little higher, only slightly, 314 watts. North Island Team Series crit last year. But look at that, 314 power, average power, effective power 351, and you can see there in the actual data file massive spikes, difference between the average power and the maximum power deliveries, which might have only been short little spikes just down the wheel, probably at relatively the same pace in the course every lap. But that's instead of being a 10 watt difference, it's more like what, a 40 watt difference or something like that, just about. So that's massive, just under 40 watts. So it shows you that was much more stochastic. It was helped by the fact that it was shorter. Here's one that's about the same length, 36 minutes, only a couple of minutes shorter. Very similar in speed and all that. Average power 292, EP 329. So again, you've got, you know, very close to 40 watts difference between the actual power and the effective power. And again, you can see there how stochastic that delivery is. Massive power spikes, because both of those rides I'm riding in the bunch, trying to stay with the bunch. Whereas this ride, here we go, that's yesterday's. Look at how consistently that power is there. It's one or two spikes there, but really much completely different ride. So, you know, I've talked about doubling down on your strengths. Well, I want to go out and prove the worth of having an idea about what you are good at on a bike, knowing what it is, assessing that through the data, and then going out, forming a tactic and doing it. Well, I hope that proves the benefit of having that kind of attitude. I'm not saying that would work every time. Certainly not a very big or strong field, but for me, I think probably one of the better tactics on the day. Doesn't always work out. Certainly worked out yesterday. So that's just an interesting little unusual crit and an unusual power analysis. If we look at results, a great day. Only 6 of us lining up there. Oh, even 5 or 6 lining up in A grade. I took the win and all of the prems because, as I say, I was away by myself. Hope Buke took second, Colin Sullivan third, Steve Orchard fourth, taking a couple of the prems, and Chris Muir taking one of the prems as well, coming in fifth. And Hugh Buke did a good ride to break away from the guys in the last couple of laps by the looks. And he is an example of a guy who just shows you where you can, there's a certain quality that's very hard to measure, which is repeated attack ability. Kind of like, you know, how fast you recover, really. I don't really know all the physiological reasons why some people are better than that than others. It could be the volume of blood you have relative to your body size. I don't know, it'd be really interesting to test. But Hope's a guy who is like, hasn't got necessarily the hugest engine, but only because he's not a big guy. You know, he's got a very big engine relative to his frame size, but he can repeat again and again and again and again. Super dangerous, good crit rider. So he was second, probably would have beat me if it was a matter of sprinting yesterday. B grade, 25 minutes plus 2 laps. Rins Schuseman taking the win from Richard Henderson and Michael Delahunty. Good work, guys. Had a pretty decent field there. Mark Coburn looks like about 5th place, taking one of the prems. D grade, 20 minutes plus 2 laps. Robert McIntyre taking the win from Brendan Baitup and Nigel Elder. Tony Evans in 4th, got one of the prems, got a 2nd place one of them. E grade, 20 minutes plus 2 laps. Tony Evans taking it from Ridge Robinson and Faye McGregor. So good, good. Thanks for putting on a cool event, guys. The good thing about the Wellington Masters Cycling Club is they have a lot of events, a very full calendar, lots of variation, and very well run, kind of low-key, fun events. And I got to say, from the perspective of a club rider, you're much more likely, I think, to have the goodwill to go along and, volunteer for those sorts of events with a sort of energy like that than you might other clubs who have done it differently in the past. And sometimes I think it's about a matter of energy and goodwill and building that up, that reliability over time. People know the club, and the people who are the sort of people who, marshalling a lot and organising a lot are very reliable, kind of like, your older middle-aged people, reliable and good-hearted. And it means a lot to me as a club racer to be part of a club like that. And it means I have absolutely no problem when it comes to putting down my name for volunteering. I don't want to volunteer, I'd rather race. But you know what? To help keep the club going in that fashion, I'm more than happy to do that. So thanks, guys. Thanks for a great race. Number 2, cushion tip of the week. Look, I just think it's sort of just building on what I found out, kind of reiterated, I guess, from what I did yesterday and from what I talked about in the last podcast, which is double down on your strengths, find out what they are, go and do it. And kind of maybe the mindset that I think is maybe most important in that is realize that a bike race, often, maybe a time trial is different, but most bike races with other people, it's not all about you and your ability. It's if you kind of put your best foot forward and you don't get your nutrition wrong and you're there on time and you warm up and you do all the basics right, a lot of what happens is actually going to be up to the bunch. Jens Voigt, I don't know, so you said this thing after a breakaway at the Tour. I don't know why this stuck in my head, but he just said, he sort of shrugged, he might have got caught close to the line or something. He says, it's what the bunch want, what the bunch want. And it's not all about you and how you ride all the time, it's the bunch. So maybe the takeaway from that is not getting too wound up about your power numbers or anything else. As long as you know you've done the basics right, you've ridden as well as you could, tactically and athletically, well, a lot of the rest of the story of the day will be written by how the bunch reacts. So chill out. If you're on a breakaway, know what your maximum steady state power is, get tested. You can, if you're away by yourself or with some other people, you can use that to know that you're getting from A to B as fast as possible. And the rest is, it might be up to the bunch a bit. And chill out. And you've done as well as you could. I want to give a shout out this week to Helen Monsterbedi, with Hannah Hunch, winning the Dunedin Portobello duathlon this week. She did a great ride with very good power numbers on not huge amounts of training because she's been very busy, and it was very impressive to see. And it'll be interesting to drill down when I talk to her about reasons for that. Could be more muscle mass from a different style of gym work we've been doing over the last wee while. It could just be she's a badass, and pain is not a factor for her. Numbers very close to peak form, not quite, but very close. You can do a lot on a relatively small amount of training. Apparently, if you're a badass, you can do a lot. What grinds my gears? Here's one that truly grinds my gears. Badly trimmed gears. if you're riding along behind someone and they've got that little kind of tick, tick, tick or something like that, see if I can, I don't know, can you hear this in the background? Oh, I can't really do it because my gears are trimmed so well. I can't even make them skip and jump. Two things. Know what your limit screws are for. Know what your B tension screw is for. And know how to adjust them. And then the easy bit is kind of your cable tension. So maybe let's just go through that. Limit screws. You've got two little screws on both of your derailleurs, front and rear. And confusingly, the top one isn't always the top of the gear range and the bottom one isn't always the bottom of the gear range. Twiddle it and figure it out with the cable off. Okay, so you're going to bring your derailleur. This could be your front or your rear derailleur. You put it on your bike. Okay, front derailleur. You want the cage to be about 2 to 3 millimeters above the top of your gear tooth, your big tooth, when your derailleur parallelogram is extended. That's what that little sticker is for. That has that little picture, 2 to 3 millimeters, so that it's far enough away that it's not going to rub, but it's close enough that you get crisp gear changes. That's first. Second, angle. Talking about front derailleur here. You're going to angle it so that it's straight. Bend it out and make sure that your derailleur cage is parallel with your big chainring teeth. Number 3, limit screws. You're going to tighten that up and you're going to pull the parallelogram out as far as it goes. Make sure that it's just at its maximum extension with the chain on the small cog at the back. Make sure that it's just missing the chain when it goes around, obviously, right? So it's not making that noise. You don't want it going too far because you don't want it derailing off the edge. You don't want it too low because it's going to rub. Just about a millimeter or 2 away from the chain. Takes account for a little bit of, when you're sprinting and you torque it over, it might bend out a little bit. Give it a couple of millimeters distance. All right, on the inside, exactly the same. Put the chain on the big sprocket at the back. Put your parallelogram all the way in. Adjust your limit screw. Whichever one it is, just tweak them. You'll see it. So that it's just missing on the inside when you're in the big cog at the back. You can imagine you're climbing. You do not want to be hearing your parallelogram of your front derailleur rubbing on the chain when you're trying to put out, your maximum power on a climb. That's going to drive you nuts because it's going to be like dragging something like 1 watt away from you, and it's going to annoy you. So do that. Okay, you've done front derailleur, rear derailleur. Again, no cable. You're going to put it in your big cog, and you're going to make sure that the upper screw, limit screw, is adjusted. Same disc so that the jockey wheel is sitting right in the middle of the big sprocket tooth, maybe like 1 millimeter up, so that it shifts just a tiny bit crisper. It's getting anal, but really so it's in the middle so that it can't push up into the, you don't want your derailleur pushing up into your spokes. And on the small cog, the back of the cluster, exactly the same. Again, you want the derailleur jockey wheel, the upper one, nicely in line, maybe 1 millimeter off the bottom of the tooth of the little cassette, but the little tooth of the cassette, little sprocket, but really in the middle for that one's probably better because the derailleur pulls that way, so it will kind of like have a natural tendency to just pull down a little further. All right, then you're going to adjust your B tension screw. Here's the mystery screw, right? It's a little freaky one on your rear derailleur. It's down by those limit screws. It's the one where if you tighten it, pushes the body of the derailleur away from the teeth on the sprockets. And because it's pushing the derailleur on the frame, there'll be a little chink in the dropout. It's pushing it away from the teeth, and it's obviously vice versa. You decrease spring tension on that B screw, and it'll bring it in closer. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, it's so that you can adjust for the correct size of your sprockets. If you've got I don't know, 11 to 23 or something like that, which is pretty standard, you might or 11.25. You might want that somewhere in the middle of the range so that the jockey wheel is about 5 millimeters, 3 to 5 millimeters off the teeth in the highest gear, in the biggest sprocket. But if you have that same setting with a much larger cassette, well, you guessed it, the extra size of the sprocket is going to make it collide with the jockey wheel. Either it'll shift terribly, the very best it'll shift terribly and it'll make a nasty noise. So just that B tension screw if you put on a bigger sprocket, a bigger set of sprockets, bigger cassette. Adjust it in so it pushes the body of the derailleur out, pulls the upper jockey wheel away from the teeth. So you've got a few millimeters clearance there. Too much clearance and it won't shift as crisp. Too little and you have the aforementioned grindage of the gears. Alright, last thing, cable tension. You'll hook up your cables. You're going to make sure they're nice and taut. There will be a little bit in a new system, a little bit of compression between the ends of the ferrules and the housing, but there won't be much. So you want to make sure it's nice and tight. With the barrel adjusters closed up fully to account for that stretch in a minute, you're going to cinch it up. You're going to shift it. Front derailleur is pretty straightforward. You really just need that to be tight. There's no barrel adjuster normally to be spoken of. So you're just going to make sure that it's obviously pulling the right amount of cable to pull it up through its mechanism of action and let it go down back to the limit of those limit screws that you set. Rear derailleur is trickier but easy. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to run it through the gears and put a little bit of tension on that housing and those ferrules in the system just to make sure that it's compressed. That's where you're getting your stretch out of it. It's not so much the cable, it's the compression. Take that out a little bit. Maybe you have to have a couple of winds out on the barrel adjuster to account for that stretch. Alright, and you're going to put it, here's how I like to do it. An old bike mechanic showed me this one. Here's a good trick. Stick it in the middle of your cluster range. The derailleur is in the middle of your range. Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to close your eyes. Get all sort of Jedi Knight. Get in the Luke pose. And you're going to close your eyes and you're going to pedal around. And you're going to keep tightening that barrel adjuster till you hear that little tink, tink, tink. Just because the jockey wheel's moving up a little far. Then relax it down. Maybe a quarter, maybe half a turn. Alright, so you've got your cable tension nicely set. The reason you're closing your eyes is because you can hear it if you close your eyes a little more accurately than if you've got your eyes open, because you reduce your senses. Now I know that sounds a bit extreme and zen, but it really does help to close off your other senses, just rely on your hearing. Alright, you're almost done. Now you're just going to whiz up and down the cassette a few times. Bang up and down there a few times to make sure that it's set nice in all the cogs. You might find, here's a little tip in the upper range, the bigger range, you might find it's a little stickier just because of the way the power algorithm, especially on Shimano derailleurs, works. The torque on it, it just is a little less in that upper range. So you might find that even another half turn down in cable tension to make the derailleur come nicely down through the range, and that upper half of the cassette will give you some nice crisp shifts. Okay, last thing, so you got it all set. After your first ride, you're just going to tweak it a little again. The most common thing is it will be probably a little more compression in the housing system of that rear derailleur. You might just need to put an extra half turn to a turn wind and cable tension on there. By that stage, it's 99% done. Check it every now and then, but that will it'll set up your derailleurs nicely. No more gear grindage, guys. I think I'll do a video about that at some point. Look, I know there's hundreds of them online. But I think my extra anal retentive attention to detail and the closing the eyes trick will get you that half a watt extra in your drivetrain drag that I think we all want it sometimes. Alright, next race. Next week we have second race on the Masters Cycling Club calendar. We have a handicap road race out in Upper Hutt. It's the Mayborn Whiteman's circuit. I can't think exactly where that goes, but it probably includes the hill climb, which is Wallaceville Hill, which is a fun, nice little hill climb. 40 something, maybe 50k road race, handicap race. Starts at 9, I think, the first group off, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. It's Upper Hutt on Sunday. I will be there with some of my FitLab riders, especially mountain bikers who like hill climbing. There's a good little hill climb there. Handicap road race, I'll cut off before. A little bit different to a graded race. It's kind of like a team time trial for the most of the race. And if you catch the other groups ahead of you, if there are any, assuming you're not in the limit group, you can then have a bit of a sprint and use some tactics. You can do that at any time if you want, but because the bunch will be motivated to work together in a handicap race, going by yourself off the front is not always the best plan for a handicap race. So technically they're a little bit different to a mass start or a graded race. Still a lot of fun and good training. Coming into the next week after that, a nice graded race around Miller's Circuit. Tropical Wairarapa. Then the big dog, number 1, the week after, North Island Team Series. FitLab is Team Master 1 again. I know Roadworks has a very good team. I understand they entered Master 1. There will be some nuclear-powered hitters in that team. They will have riders such as the Infinite Airstrike Brendan McGrath. They will have probably Infinite Airstrike hill climber Callum Kennedy. They are likely to have Infinite Airstrike TT specialist John Sifter Randall. And I think probably between the three of them they could just about win the series. FitLab will be going up against them with I'm not going to tell you who's in the team yet. We've probably got a better team than last year. Some good hitters. So I'll tell you, we've got me, we've got Andrew. We've got Lee, we've got Chris. We've got a couple of new guys, Ben. We've got a bunch of guys, and we're kind of probably going to be a good all-round team. The level between the teams will be very similar. I'd watch those two teams. Teams will probably be announced in the next couple of weeks on George's website. I would check that out. All right, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, guys. /listening. If you'd like a coaching plan from me, you can go to fitlab.co.nz. You can email me, steve@fitlab.co.nz. As always, this is brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomaxa, and Capital Cycles. See you soon, guys. Thanks for watching/listening to Fast to You Full, brought to you by FitLab, Capital Cycles, Tailwind Nutrition, and Biomaxa. If you'd like to get in touch for a coaching program or testing, you can get hold of me, steve@fitlab.co.nz, or go to fitlab.co.nz. Talk soon, guys.